We're going to start at 7 guys online, so don't worry.
That's a statement. So that's why it's so easy.
All right, guys, let's give our attention to Rob
Big Joe.
and Joe and G.
Okay. Yeah. So this is
Here goes.
This is it.
Do you want to show?
So for our project, we wanted to create an app that mainly was a calorie or nutrition fact counter, and then would also supply the user with a list of recipe ideas that would use those same ingredients and provide maybe some inspiration for what they have sort of in their kitchen already, and giving them those nutrition facts at the same time. So G is our other partner. She's not with us today, but going through this process was certainly, it had its challenges. I think mostly with like the communication, things like that. Members of the group, we would do certain parts of. Sorry.
Oh, G's online.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
So she's with us online. Sorry, I was saying that the communication kind of led to a lot of inefficiency. People were getting work done that we later had to sort of bring back and sort of work together again. And so, learning that sort of process of coordinating the group, presented some pain points, I think, for us. But, what we've got right now is something that's functioning. It's not exactly the prettiest thing, but, it works, and it gives us the information that we want. And,
Cool.
Here we go.
Yeah. So I think, just to go on top of that, I think some of the challenges when you were saying like, don't get hung up on the GitHub stuff. Yeah, we got hung up on GitHub. So we kind of understand that challenge, and that was one of the first things that we ran into, other than figuring out the API and getting that working and stuff. But once we got the API, trying to get through GitHub, this is what we got so far. So name of the site is called Spork. As you can see, meal prep made easy. So basically what we have here is the 2 cards right here serving as instructions, letting you know, like, this is how you use the site, right? So Spork 1 is selecting your food and portion size. I'm like, okay, so let me do that. Okay, so I'm going to say I want 1, let's say I'll get an ounce of chicken in here. Chicken's good. And I'll add it down here. So now my food came up, the calories, and then this is where we're calling on our API, and this is what the API is giving us back based on that information on chicken, right? So we know it's 60 calories. And then still looking at the first step, I'm like, okay, if I like this food, I can add it to my ingredient table. I'm like, okay, I'm down the chicken and the 60 calories. Let's add this to the table. And so it adds it down here, chicken, 60 calories, and we have a total ingredient calorie tracking for the other foods that we're going to add. So what's something else that goes good with chicken? I don't know, like rice and chicken, right? So rice, the food, our API is telling us right here, rice. So a cup of rice, all the information right here. I'm like, okay, that sounds good too. Let's add rice. What's another vegetable we can add in? I'm done with broccoli.
Perfect.
Nice. Rocco.
2 C's.
Broccoli. Is that how you spell it? Okay. All right, cool. So we're adding another cup of broccoli. Bam. Okay. So like Joe said, it kind of started off with just an idea of being like, what do I have in my fridge right now? Like what's open right here? So I have a little bit of chicken, rice, and broccoli. And so now looking at the step 2, like once my ingredient table is complete, let's find a recipe that's made just for me. It's like, okay, that's what I got. Find recipe. Scroll down, and it gives us recipe ideas based on those 3 ingredients that are going to be in there. So then it tells us the total calories for those recipes, and we stopped it at 5 recipes. Ajit was working a lot on the API, so she was real good on this part. As far as like stopping this, because the recipes that came back and suggesting it just kept going. It was giving us a ton. So right here, so like that's what we got. And then we're like, okay, this cheesy broccoli and rice casserole actually looks pretty bomb. So I'm gonna click on this. Takes us to the site with that, or it should. But yeah, it's supposed to go to that. No thanks, I'm not interested. Yeah, just want the recipe. Where you at? You're somewhere.
The right one here.
Yeah. Well, the recipe will show up there. That's what's supposed to happen. Yeah. Hold on. Let's try that one more time.
You might just pick the wrong.
Yeah, I picked the wrong. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, let's do this. Nothing came up there. Hold on, I'm just gonna do the whole. I'm gonna just do one that I know works. Chicken and rice. And it's nice it gives you different ones every time too. Come on, just okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Success. That's what we're looking for. You scroll down, now you have your recipe and you're good. So now you're off and going. The only thing you see we're missing from that chicken and rice was like, oh, I just need a little bit of peas. Let me go to the store quick, grab some peas. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Did you want to see like the code and like how we broke that down or anything, or like? Okay. Yeah, for sure. So the framework that we used, it was UIKit. So that's what we picked instead of Bootstrap. So this is the links that we need for that to work. We have the CSS right here for that and the JavaScript right there. As we were going, we tried to keep it clean where we know what parts we're working on right here. So like us, this is going to be the header right here with the spork, the navigation bar. So we're still working on that, where it's going to go. So you can see we have the meal prep. I'll show you what the navigation bar is right here. So the meal prep would take you back to this main page about Spork, would give information on like when it started and information about us, and then feedback. That was going to be the next step we were working on, but that was going to be our link to Firebase, where we could have a question on here like, are these recipes good? Are you happy with the suggestions? And that'll be information for us to be like, if we're getting a bunch of no's and we're like, okay, we need to figure out something with these recipes or
Just
suggestions.
like a simple like thumbs up or thumbs down on did that recipe suggestion work for you, and then kind of get like just live responses, see how everything's doing.
Yep. So again, this section right here is talking about the field select or the food selection field. Our nutrition facts field is right here. So these 2 cards on how it works. This is just straight from UIKit, and it's a card that kind of slide in when you scroll down or when you load the screen. So they kind of have that effect. And then this is the ingredients table that you add stuff down to. And then the recipes field with the Ajax query right here this is the initial Ajax query. We also attached it to so this is our separate JavaScript stuff right here. So we have our API keys that we finally got working. Yeah, and this is like I said, this is the initial Ajax query here. So this is the one that gives us all the food information based on what you type in on that first line. When you add to the button that says add to the ingredient table, this is the code for that. And then this is going to be the recipe function that generates that table on the bottom right here. So it's not hard coded. It generates it depending on, just those responses right there.
Is that paid API?
No, it's free. It's from what's the site?
Edamame.
Edamame? Yeah.
I think, did you guys use the same one? Yeah. It was one of the first that came up, and it looks like it's pretty popular, and it's free.
Mhm.
And it gives a lot. It has a lot of information right there. The recipes and the nutrition facts came from the same place, so we didn't have to go too far once we found that.
Yep. Any other like next steps that we were trying to do or like think about?
Oh yeah, we
anything
want
like
to
that?
kind of clean up that nav, kind of give a little bit more information, sort of like what we're really trying to do here. I think that there is a little bit of sort of like some confusion, from from an appearance aspect. Sort of, we were trying to get the functionality. We prioritize that over the appearance of this page. So things certainly can get cleaned up a little bit there. But anyhow, here we are presenting probably a little bit early, but I think that we're happy with what we got out of it. It was fun.
I am. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Was there like?
Can you guys just teach us a little bit about how to use the
Yeah. So I have that up right here. So Joe was the one that found this. So I guess the first thing you have to do is install it right onto your computer, and then right here it kind of gives you all the installation ideas. So like basically just copy and paste this and put this into your code right here for UIKit, and then it's similar to Bootstrap. Where on the left right here, here's all the components that we're looking for, right? So for example, those cards that kind of slide in. This is that part right here. Should be down here somewhere, unless it was on a different part. Might have been a different part. Okay, well that was a lie. Let's go to buttons. I know I use those. But yeah, so here's if you want these buttons to look like that, small buttons, it's just right here. Just copy, have the markup. Basically, just take that from there and put it in the correct place. I think the main thing we were struggling with was actually getting those links in the correct spot first to get it to work properly at first. So we're still messing around with the nav bar. Of course, that's stuff that's on here.
It's also not responsive right now.
Yeah.
We still have to throw that in there also. Rows and columns.
So that was I did the rows with the table on the bottom. There's a table function right here.
It's pretty versatile. There's not a limit like with Bootstrap. You can really characterize it your own way pretty easily.
So this is the one that I use for the bottom. Yeah. So when the ingredients table loads and when the recipes for you load, it's this one right here, this striped modifier table. But yeah, I mean everything's pretty much just right here. So I made it pretty easy to get on there once you figured it out.
Great job, guys. Can you guys slack out the GitHub
Yeah.
and in your Trello?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
You know the questions? Cool. Yeah. Nice. Or or feedback or something oh, that sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Was that yours? There's a backpack. Someone's backpack.
Can you get the audio going, please, Pavan?
gets worse in the second time around. Is that,
Yeah, you're good.
all right, start from the top?
Yeah.
All right, my name is Derek Still. This is Judica.
Hi.
Our project was the marriage of a couple of ideas. Mine was a randomization for a lunch date via video online. Judica had the idea of,
Randomizing a restaurant according to the user's location.
right.
Yeah.
So then we took the two ideas, the random restaurant and the random person, slammed it together, made one terrible idea that was extremely complicated.
Yeah.
Pavan signed off on it, which is also a level up. And we created Mural. Mural is meet up in
Meetup.
real life. So
Mhm.
it's a simple one-page app.
Yeah.
We use Materialize for the CSS frame, for the
Styling.
styling.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
a grid framework, just like Bootstrap. So that's Materialize. And we also used CSS along with it.
Right, for additional styling.
Yeah.
We use the Here API for location services. We use Google Maps for additional location services for results. So we hit two APIs.
Yeah.
And we also use HTML for geolocation from
Yes.
the browser.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. So right now we have just made the business part of this, the friendship, and group mural is work in progress.
Mhm.
So the business part we are going to show you today how it works. So first, like you have options like what you are, like application developer, and I want to meet application engineer. Now I'm going to use my location, the geolocation. So it will pop up this, and yeah, so this is the geolocation. I'll put in Pavan. Yeah. And the add. Hey Pavan, let's find your match. So this is Angular we used for like whatever you type here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it binds with that. Now let's go. So
sorry, Pavan.
sorry, Pavan, we couldn't find your match right now. Yeah. So now let's try again. So now here comes an application engineer who wants to meet an application developer. And now he is near ferry building. Let's say Josh. Let's go. Hey Josh, we found your match. You're meeting Pavan at Jackson Place Cafe. Where's that?
We also use the Lyft API to generate
Yeah.
the Lyft button,
And you get
estimate a ride, and on click it will take you to
yes.
the
So
Lyft ride, and it
let's-
preloads the
let's
coordinates for the pickup and the destination.
So this is how Josh will go and meet
Yeah,
Pavan.
you guys are gonna have a great time.
Yeah.
So we used Angular for the naming conventions, and then we also used Angular for the add emails to group Mural,
Yes,
which
we'll
is a
show
work
that.
in progress. But Angular is what handles the lists
Mhm.
for adding. If you want to
Yeah.
jump back in there.
And yeah. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that's how like
Yeah.
you can add that.
So in the next iteration,
Mhm.
we hope to take your email list, your group of friends, randomize the location, send out the invite. So Mural your group of friends, and then people could just show up. Hey, we're gonna randomize. Boom, sends it out to these guys. Everyone goes. We pick the location, the restaurant, the park, whatever it is, and send out a group invite.
And for this friendship, we just like created like what friends do, like yoga, board games, or whatever. Like, yeah. And yes, so how this location matching works is it looks for people who are within 5 miles of each other, and then finds a restaurant which is midway for both of them. Like it is 2.5 miles from each person or somewhere like that,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We use the
Mhm.
Haversine formula, which I'm not sure
Yeah.
if anybody was familiar with that, to calculate the distance between two coordinates. We took half distance between that, and then we ran a radius out from that to choose the location of the
Location
destination.
in that midpoint of the
Right.
users. Yeah.
So we did a lot of the coding was problem solving based around location services, kind of mapping, distance calculations, and things like that.
Mhm.
So.
I want to go to the code.
Oh, the code.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah, we'd love to see, I'd love to see how you calculate the
Yeah.
midpoint.
Yeah. So these are all the so many variables, and this is the for the drop down. We created it dynamically. The professions, activities. This is for the radio button listener for profession, friendship, group mural. What is the drop down content? What was that you wanted to see?
Specifically, how we split the Haversine in half.
Yeah.
A lot of the calculations are complicated, and just
Yeah.
for the
I'll
sake of
see this one.
transparency, you do end up using Google a lot as a tool to figure out how someone else solved this problem, and you have to work around
What
their
is the one? Midpoint.
yeah, it's the middle point.
Do you want to go over it?
He said he wanted to see it. We're showing it to him. We could send it to you, Pavan, too, if you wanted to actually see the code and play with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seek API, places, seek API. This is for map, which is the,
Where
address. Yeah, there's lots through the. Which one? Yeah.
Here?
this one.
This is the Here API.
Here API.
So yeah, Here is a navigation mapping service similar to Google Maps or Mapbox. It just happens to be what I found and we ended up using because it was inexpensive and accessible and really easy to work with. Sure. Yeah.
Could you guys give a little intro into Angular for the box and how you use it?
So we didn't get much time to read about it, but what we understood, like you create inside your HTML.
Oh, could you
Yeah,
show
yeah.
us also?
So if you can see here in the body tag, we have created ng app. So you give some name to that app, and there can be like only one ng app on the entire body. So we had problems with that. Like he created some part of the code, I created some part of the code, and I had my own ng app, he had his own ng app, and there things were just not adding up. So then like we had to read about it and then just have one ng app and bind some ng controllers to it. Like there is like a repeat here for the what was that?
The code was in products and
Yeah.
but this was for
Mhm.
using adding emails.
Yeah. So this was for adding the emails, and then you click that and it gets like how you could see that it got appended in the emails when you add it, like one email over the other. So that's how like it immediately shows on the screen what you are doing. For this ng model name, so whatever you type here in this input, it will check for this model name. Wherever you have put it in the paragraph tag or anywhere you want it, it will check for that name. And this is the syntax for it, like you put 2 curly brackets and inside that you put name, and then whatever you put in the input, it will go inside that paragraph tag. So like it just like binds whatever content you feed it.
Yeah, so guys, on line 139, traditionally what you would have to do is you'd have to select, you have to put
He's in.
curly bracket name into like a span tag,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Put an ID on it, and then you'd have to select that and update the HTML or text of it, right? But with Angular, what they did was it auto-binds. So if the variable changed the value, the page automatically changes. So when the variable changes, the page automatically updates. Right, so that's a huge value.
Yeah.
In Angular. Oh, what did you say? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Sorry,
Okay.
yeah, two-way binding.
Mhm. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah.
Everyone made Angular.
And materialize as well.
So which version of Angular do you use?
The latest one.
That's good. Good
I
answer.
don't know the.
This one is 1.7
Uh,
or 1.5? It's probably 1.7.
1.6.9. Yeah.
I think the
Yeah,
latest
yeah.
is 10 or 12.
Oh,
Mm.
oh, okay.
Okay.
They didn't go over it.
Mhm.
They jumped from 2 to 10. So did you create a module or not?
Yes. No, I guess.
They create controllers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Controllers. Yes, that's the word. Right. And
Because
we
you guys
had.
used the same one I did in like 2012,
Oh, okay.
which I like this one better than
Mhm. The most challenging part, what I felt, was dealing with the Firebase, because every time we went through it, it gave all the matches that we had. Like suppose we had populated our Firebase with all application developers who wanted application engineers, and like when one person came who wanted an application developer and who is an application engineer, then all those people who were like sitting in the Firebase, they all like, we could get everything in the console. So working with that was like very challenging, like lot of if else statements and making variables for the current user and past user. And that was like the most challenging part, like learning. And that's how like we learned like how to get the last child and all that, reading. Like while doing this project, we just like started reading a lot about that. So that was a huge learning experience.
A lot of problem solving for something that superficially seems really simple,
Mhm.
like a single page and a few buttons.
Like the last page, the map and the lift page, we got it on like the Tuesday or somewhere last week. Yeah, it was like, wow, we finally see some content here. Otherwise everything was like in console. We were like, yeah, get the matched person, then get this, get that, and finally we got the map. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions?
Too late. That's here.
Europe, yeah.
Yeah, that's here. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, here is the API that we use. Yeah. Here not. No, it's its own service. It's like its own geocoding service around this that we use. It's kind of evolved like our business. Just that final one, I used that last one because you're very familiar with it. I didn't want to throw in a map that no one had seen before. I think people wanted to Google one.
What did you use for matching?
Formatting?
Did you use an API for matching? or-
No.
Is there
Just
also-
JavaScript.
A lot of if else and or statements.
Lot of that.
Great job, guys. Can you share your screen?
Yeah, sure.
Amazing. Usually people do that at the very end of the class.
Oh.
Decent.
Oh, really?
If it's, and usually don't, they usually don't go that far. So you guys are about 2 months.
We had
You guys are about 4 months ahead.
we had to use something, but I
Yeah,
can't, I just grabbed it and tried to learn it. So.
Yeah.
Good job. I think we covered most, like all the parts, right?
Yeah.
already.
left off Angular at the top. And when I went up there, I was like, I'm gonna cover the like. We use this, and this. No, I totally forgot about that. You learned more about Angular than I did when I read the W3 Schools thing, and then I just started editing.
How do I make this up?
I just click
You
share
could have
screen.
like done
I think
far
you're
off places and
Oh, you
shown
should
that
see it,
it does not match like
the very
like
top.
that.
You see
Santa
view
Clara and
options.
as if that type of
Yeah, that-
Ah, yep, you're
All right.
good.
So my idea is not very shiny. It's mostly
So
from a
guys, let's just give Amelia
Yeah.
our attention. Am I saying your name right?
Jamilia. Yes. Hi, I'm Jamilia. My idea is not very shiny. It's mostly like data oriented. It came from the fact that I really wanted to sort of, whenever I wake up, I want to check up the news, like, but with a single page. I don't want to go to Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. So I just kind of want to have like a glance before I go do my routine, right? So anyway, I use Materialize as my framework for CSS, and I didn't have time to do Reddit API. It's kind of laggy. Let's see. Okay, I'm kind of confused what's going on here. Yeah, the Zoom is kind of. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to open a new tab and show something, but okay. Newsapi.org is the API I'm using. This is a model that I use. This is like a tool that Materialize gives you. So here I can make a card. Let's say U.S. politics. And then I give some keywords that I want to filter for, like Trump, Russia, and create. So it pulls up a bunch of articles based on those keywords, and you can click on them if you want to read the article itself. So that's it. For Firebase aspect, I used Firebase Firestore, which is, I think, different from the real-time database. I hope that's okay, because I didn't want to do real-time database because it's not very secure. So I can delete this and then register, say, pavan.com, email pavan, and password. I register. Password's too weak. Okay. Okay, let me just do Pavan Gmail. There we go. Register. Okay, now I'm logged in. Whenever I make a card, let's say tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Google. So this is my preference, right? My card that I want to look for. Okay, let me reload this. So Pavan is now registered as he's part of the users. Okay. And for the database, please open. Oh. Okay, there you go. He's probably the last one. No, that's not him. Yeah, there you go. That's him. So this is his entry for the card. And if he chooses to delete it, the database will update and will disappear. And then I can sign out, and let's say I made a user before to showcase how you could use it. This email 3. Wait, 3 here. Wrong password. Okay. Okay, so these are my, if I was a previous user, all my stuff comes back. If I add a new card, it will save. If I delete a card, it will go away. And this is the user is this one. And that's it for now. I had to move apartments last week, so I didn't have time to implement the Reddit API, even though I registered for it. So that's to come. For the code, I didn't comment on it very much. I usually do, but this time I was a bit. These are all the things I'm loading, which is the fonts I'm using, Materialize API, CSS, and then Firebase UI. The cool thing about Firebase, you only have to load the components you want to use, which I'm loading before my scripts. API.js is where the secrets are, the sensitive information you don't share with GitHub. And then I'm not sure if there's anything like super things that stand out. This is not up to date. I forgot to pull from GitHub, to commit to GitHub for my desktop PC, but my favorite part was probably like randomly generating these IDs. Oh, by the way, we're supposed to use a library, right? As part of the requirements, like any given library. I didn't do that. I really tried to find like a use for a library, and one of the uses I was thinking is like for randomly generated IDs. But then I just found like a way to do it myself, which is like I just use the current time, I multiply by a random number, and then I turn it to hex number. So if you look at my current cards, no, not this one. They have all unique IDs, which is also the IDs I use to store in database, so I can delete them later. This is sign-in functions that I use Firebase docs to implement. They have really good documentation, so that's good. And this is a function that listens to state changes for if users sign in or sign out. And my main function is pretty small. This is like when you use modals, like the ones I use here when I create a card. You're like, it's kind of like a part of Materialize. You have to sort of you can use like different arguments to prevent scrolling. Like in the background, you can scroll when it's active. Dismissible true, which means like if I open it, I can also dismiss it by clicking anywhere else. And on close end is like what happens at the end of when the modal closes. So right now I'm just wiping, let's say someone types something in the email box. It doesn't remember that next time the modal opens. Right, that's about it. Mm-hmm.
Could you walk everyone through the differences between the Firebase real time and the Firebase that you use?
Oh, I guess the biggest difference is like it's secure. So this is my rules for the thing. So it's only allowing read and write if there's a user. I'm not sure I know a lot about them that much. It's just like I just wanted to use it because it makes more sense to me than using real time. I think real time is unsecure because anybody can do anything on your website. But this way you can allow users to store their things while being secure. Any other questions?
I think real time is not insecure in the sense that real time is not secure in the sense that when you deploy to production, you just change the read write.
Yeah, you can also edit rules, I think, on the real time. Yeah. So
you can change it to make sure that the only thing that can update your database is your domain.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I didn't get to host this. I'm planning to. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't look very shiny, but I feel like when you deal with data, you don't want things to be too shiny because you're sort of focused on the data itself. Yeah, but I still think it looks cool. Like also like Materialize lets you like easily implement things like hoverable, like the card is hoverable right now. You know, all of this is just Materials work, not mine.
Oh, the colors randomized?
Yeah, they're randomized.
How do you do that?
I actually had that's what I meant. Like I didn't commit. I had a much better function to do that. I have last colors used array. It used to be an array. It is an array now. It's just I didn't update my code. And whenever a card is created, which is this function create card, it does choose a random color, which is the function I defined above here. Chooses a random color out of my colors that I specified because I want the style to be consistent. I chose my own colors. So it chooses a color until the color is not the one that's used. So it will always the next one is always going to be different from the previous one. But right now I'm using an array that stores the last 3 colors. So it's while last colors used includes the color. And then I delete the first. Whenever, if the size of the array goes above 3, I delete the first one. So sorry for not updating my code, but that's actually something I also really like doing because I felt like kind of neat. Yeah, yeah, and the material, let's say use a lot of icons, like this menu icon right here. They have a ton of icons, and the way you use them is you use tiny materials attribute as class, and that's it. And the text has to be like one of the text icons name, and that will give you the icon. Right. Any questions?
Great job.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, we'll just take a 15-minute break and then we'll keep going. Oh, there's slide two. give Aaron, Mary our attention. Go ahead, guys.
All right, so we created kind of a daily meal prepper here, where essentially you are going to create the foods that you're going to eat for the day, and base them off a caloric goal that you've set for yourself at the beginning of the day. And so the outcome of the goal would be to then kind of show the list of foods you're going to eat, how much the caloric intake that those foods represent, how it matches it up to your goal, and kind of a breakdown as well of that as well too. And then being able to save your list with a name saying like, this is the Sunday's list, Monday's list, something like that, so that you can go back and search for it later on. So a few things here. Some things that we're still trying to work on doing is creating unique users. We want to add that at some point here. So we created pages for both of those, but they're not functioning at this point. But it was kind of a stretch goal, something we wanted to get to if we had time. But if you start here. So essentially, when you start, I got to move this box. You put in your caloric goals for the day, and say you want to put in 2,000, and then essentially you're just going to start creating your list of foods. So say if you want to eat an apple in the day, it kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown of the nutritional facts of that food, the calories. You add that item to your list, and it goes towards your running total for that day. Some great things here with this list as well too is we have it set so you can come back at any time. It's set so everything stays put the way it's supposed to. As well too, if you decide actually I want to eat a few more calories during the day instead of the original goal of 2,000, you can reset your goal without having to lose your list or your running total as well either. And then vice versa, you can keep your goal while also resetting your list of the foods that you want to eat. And it tells you to add new foods in. So we'll say an apple, say some cheese, and sometimes you have to be very in the search criteria is very intuitive as well too. Because say you put something like you just put very vague and put chicken in, it's going to give you the caloric intake of an entire chicken. So obviously you don't want to probably put that into your list. So you want to put something like cup of chicken or ounce of chicken. 60 calories, or something like cup of even name brand foods it recognizes. Cup of Cheerios, 105 calories. So you have here, so like great, finished. I want to see my final list. So you click your final list here, and so we are using we use Chart.js to kind of dynamically create this pie chart for your foods. So it creates essentially all the foods that you have in your list. And it gives you kind of a breakdown of saying like, wow, ideally you would put more than 4 foods in and you'd be closer to your goal, but you'd say like, wow, this food is taking up a significant chunk of what I'm eating through the day, and helps kind of show that through imagery and displaying it and stuff like that. And just like before, you can go back and change this as need to, and it'll dynamically change your pie chart based on the foods that you put in. And then at the end here, you can kind of you name the list what you want it. This list. You create the list, and at the end, that's your list for that day. And then you have the option at the end, to obviously just to start a new list over again, and it brings you right back to this page, resets all the goals and everything for you in the list, and allows you to do it all over again. So some of the programs, like I say, we use Chart.js to map out and to create that pie chart. For the list. For our grid system, we use Foundation. We found it very intuitive and just kind of very easy to use for a lot of this. Trying to think what else. Do you think you wanted to add?
Oh, and we use the same API as Rob.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to use. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only I would say issue or thing we noticed is that we were getting close to our limit of 1,000 you're allowed per month, but it's so super easy to create a new ID and a new key very, very easily on here. So we actually did right before the beginning of class, because we were getting emails warning us that we were close to our usage for the month. We just created a new ID, a new key, and placed it in very simply into it, making it very easy. So yeah, for the biggest thing for me too was figuring out how to make the chart dynamic, because the way Chart.js teaches you to use their product is just creating a static list where you just enter, the labels of what you want the food to, or whatever it is you're representing to represent, and then adding in for data points just integer numbers. And so on the back end through Firebase, I had to create. I created some arrays where it is actually storing those values for me, and I just was able to then plug that. Oops, I always spell that. Yeah, and then I just was able to. Yeah. Creating that there, I was able to then plug that into the chart.js, this variable here to make the list and the labels and the pie chart itself dynamic based on what you input into it. So that's about it. So yeah, just getting into the code. Foundation looks a lot like Bootstrap. You have grid cell sizes. The one big difference is that they don't use rows. They use a XY grid system with Foundation. So I think it makes it a little bit easier, so you don't have to call out rows and stuff like that in it. On top of that as well too, there's easy things like call out that actually like defines the div. So like it had like having a defined border versus it not having a defined border and things like that. All of our buttons, inputs, everything like that was also easily made through Foundation as well. So you just use input, very like I say, very intuitive and works really, really well. It was recommended highly as something that we should have used for our grid system. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Oh, can you show us how you use Firebase?
Yeah. Like how we used it, or like?
Yeah, how you use it.
Yeah, so we use it actually a lot of places. We used it first here to save. Sorry, that's not the first thing. Well, we used it in the beginning here. We were trying to figure out a way of creating unique users without authorization, like being able to save lists and come back to them under one user. We were having some difficulty doing that. So we ultimately just moved on to being able to save one list at a time instead of trying to save multiple lists. So we do have this key up here for potentially creating, a child act function in the future where we're able to create multiple lists at once. On top of that, so one of the first places where we use Firebase is here just to keep track of our running total. So it displays the running total to begin with, and every time a new food is added, that running total is then displayed based on the child snapshot of that variable. So we do the same thing so we use database to update the goal based on what you put, and then to reset the goal as well too. If you decide you want to change your goal, it's just updated using update as well too through Firebase. Here's our API, and then through here as well too. So when you're adding an item or to your list, it's you're pushing it through the Firebase, and it's saving through here to your list, and it's also updating the list as well here, as you can see right here. And then resetting is exactly like resetting your goal. It's resetting all the variables attached to your list, being the array, the food counter, all that's being updated so that you can kind of restart over again what you've done. And we have it displaying, changing the running total as well too. And then we also use it. So then at the end, when you actually create your list title, that's when we use Firebase set and actually set all the variables with the title, all the variables even updating throughout this whole program. So the running counter, the title, the goal, the food, all together at the end. Just a side note, I tried using push here so they would create a unique user, and I got a unique experience where it just kept generating like thousands of unique users over and over again. So I was trying to find the right way to do that so that we could set the list, but push it into a unique user ID, and that clearly was not the way you wanted to do that. Yeah, so I want to work on that a little bit more, so what you can actually go back and see the list that you created in the past. And then just here as well too, yeah, this is the chart.js that we used here. And they had the two variables that we had to work with and change is the food names. And so it's using the so we had to change we had to take an object from Firebase and turn it into an array so that the chart.js would actually recognize it. So we had to use food names, and then it's the first in that that object that we were trying to pull and make it in an array. The same with the label as well too. So this variable here, label 0 is an array of strings. So like apple, pear, whatever it be, and then food name 0 is an array of integers. So 94 calories, 54 calories, and that's how we were able to make the chart.js dynamic.
Oh, and we're still working on how to add the legends on top of the chart. Yeah, we still couldn't edit the font color.
Yeah, that was just one issue. You could tell here. You're supposed to be able to see the names up here. I was just trying to figure out how to update it. Oh yeah, the list. I should point this out too. For whatever reason you'd want to use it, the list is very animate as well. You can essentially click on the different colors that are in there and take certain foods out. So if you wanted to, see what it would look like if you didn't have, you weren't eating, say, cheese through the day, and you've had a lot of other different foods there. What all those other foods would look like if you were to eliminate one from the chart. It's very dynamic that way as well too. Cool.
Great job, guys.
We're doing all three.
Not, oh, sorry, I don't use Zoom. Share. Yes. Share. Solid. Solidified. All right. So here is ours. So basically the idea came about because a lot of times when I'm trying to figure out what I want to do on the weekends with my girlfriend, a lot of time we're sitting around like Friday night trying to figure out what we want to do on a Saturday. And we'll go to Google and we'll type in like Monterey. We'll see, okay, the weather is kind of crappy in Monterey. Okay, we look at Santa Cruz. Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's on the same bay. Weather's the same. And we kind of chart our way up or down Highway 1, depending, looking for good weather. And a lot of times we'll find that we've got like 12 tabs open. We're trying to figure out where we want to go. So I propose the idea of building a map where it just kind of maps the weather. I'm also from the East Bay. So I'm from this area over here where you see all the water spines in over here. There's all these waterways where you go out on a boat and stuff. So like in the summertime, my girlfriend and I are trying to figure out like where's the nicest weather for us to spend the weekend. So it's like East Bay or South Bay, or in San Francisco it's like still 49 and a half. So she's from San Diego, so I told her it's not about like you can find the sun in the Bay Area, you just got to know where to go. So that was why I wanted to build this map. So we went ahead and did that. I'll show you really quick what we did with Firebase, and then Syed will show you what we did with API, and then Nadir will go through the code. If I just pull out of this really quick and hold on. So if I show you, so the way that we did this, and it's kind of like what you were talking about, Aaron, was the unique user ID by pushing. So if you sign on to the website or get on, then you get this user ID, which is from the connections, you get this unique ID. And then what we do is as you start to star things, it adds it over here in the starred places. You can actually click on and it'll pop up with a card, and you can review the information to see if you actually like the weather, and then you can add that and it'll add it over here. You could also unadd it here, add it here. You can unadd it here, or delete it there. You can delete it here. That didn't work there, but as you can see down here, if I show you based on that unique key, it adds it to the list. So if I just come in here and just star a bunch of these, you can see in real time it adding them down here to the bottom, right? So then as you accumulate these and you build up this list, you can go to and click the starred view, and it's going to create
those cards, but for all of the cities that you had starred. So that way you can look at them side by side. So essentially the idea is, if I just go back and refresh it, if you saw maybe like a couple candidates here, so you're like, Santa Rosa might look nice. Maybe we'll go up to whatever breweries are up there. You know, Petaluma, we'll go to a brewery up there. Or we're thinking about Napa going to a winery, and then the East Bay, or maybe San Jose, and then you want to review the card information that you see here, but you want to review it side by side, you just click here, and now you can see them all here. And we have it set up so that way, if I go back and refresh, you can add as many as you want, and the list will eventually fill up, and then it's like scrollable. I'll show you how that looks on the other side too. So, right, so you can come in here and then, you know, exit out what you don't like, and it unstars it from the map. Then you click on the starred view, and then you get, you know, as much as you need to look at here. So that's essentially the site and the functionality. The one thing that we don't have built in is, so the cool, I'll just explain real quick what we do with the database. So as you create anytime you refresh, it's a new session. So you get a new unique identifier, and then that creates, puts everything into the favorites piece under that unique identifier. When you do the crossover from this page to the next page, it passes that user ID, that unique key, and it references it here and puts it into an array, and that's what populates it. What we haven't put into it yet, because we didn't have time, is passing that back, so that when you come back here, everything would still be starred or liked on this page. So that's just one thing that we need to do, which won't be too hard. We just didn't get around to doing it. So that's the website and the Firebase piece, and I'll let Saeed explain the API connection.
Okay.
The API that we use.
Yeah, about the APIs, all this, when you see all this information already on the website, we created like an array where you can get all this information. We start in an array. Then you can see all this thing. At the same time, we did like a value for each city where you can get all this, like the time and the sky and everything. It's like when you click on each city, you have it like a variable. It goes to the API, then it grabs the information about any city you add in here. That's what I can say.
Cool.
More explication with the details.
Yeah, so going back to like the database, the Firebase database, the values that you saw in that database, they're actually city IDs that are associated with the API. So we use those values to hit the API and get the city information from the weather API. And essentially the way it works is, if I can show the code, it's there. So this is some icon association, but I think what I would like to show is just how it works. So in the beginning, as Saeed mentioned, we have all these objects in the city on the page, like different cities, and we create an array from those. We create a list of all these like city IDs, and then we run it through the Ajax call. And we in the Ajax call, we have a lot of utility functions, because the response that we got, it was not digestible. A lot of the data was like in like meters per second for like wind speed or Kelvin. Yeah, the degrees were in Kelvin. So we had to do a lot of like time conversion and speed conversion and temperature and all that. And then once we run it through that, we run the for loop and do all the Ajax calls. We get all the data. We store it in an array in objects. So we used a lot of objects in our code, and then we input those on the page using that object. Here are some of the utility functions. So like, as I mentioned, there's like temperature converter, speed converter, rounder, things like that. And I think one of the more interesting things that I was working on that I found was actually hovering over the star and how to get that to work. So like hovering over a star, it would change the color of the star to gold. And then when you click it, it needs to remain as gold. That turned out to be a little bit complicated because I was using hover in the beginning, but I realized I ended up using mouse over and then doing it like mouse enter and mouse exit. So I think those are really helpful to know. And you kind of like do on mouse enter and then on mouse exit are two different functions that run. And we kind of connected those together. So yeah, it's mouse sleeve actually. So mouse over and mouse sleeve. Yeah, and then the rest of it is just like pop-ups, but there's, yeah, we used a ton of objects. I think objects came to be really, really helpful because we were dealing with a ton of like different, a lot of cities, and all of that data needs to be loaded. And there's a lot of data associated with the cities. Yes.
Yeah, I'll show you really quick.
Yeah.
Scroll up.
I really like how they guys online 199, 203. See how they're chaining the on mouse lead and then on click on top of that. That was really cool. So
Right here. So how we do the $sign and then we declare the star icon and we do on mouse over, and then chaining off of the star icon we do on mouse leave and then on click. We don't define star icon again. So we've already chosen that, whatever it is. I don't even know the term, but yeah, we picked that and then you just on mouse over, on mouse leave, on mouse click, and then a lot of if else statements for what happens from there. And then, yeah, just to show you what the data look like from the API. So I guess this isn't.
Yeah, that's like 282 temperature.
Is this it though? This is all it was? I feel like there's a lot more data than that.
Oh, that's about it.
But yeah, you can see like temperature 282, like that's not a temperature that any of us know. So we had to figure that out. And you looked in the API docs and it says it's in Kelvin. So put together a converter for that. Wind speed was meters per second rather than miles per hour. So again, that's what you see. We titled that utility functions here. So I did. I built one for title case because for any city, any of the data that we got back, we want the city, the first letter of each word to be capitalized. So that's where you get this title case function, and then temperature converter brings in the Kelvin number and spits it out, rounds it, because a lot of times when you do that, it'll be like 0.339764. We want to round that, so or else it wouldn't fit on the little cards that we had. So. That's
also we have Josh worked a lot on the icons that we have. So all of those we have a different icon for day and night, and those depending on the time of day it updates. So if it's nighttime, there's a moon. Otherwise, like during day, it would be sun.
So you'll see like here, so broken clouds. It's broken clouds and it's night, so it's a moon with a cloud, right? And then over here it's clear sky but night, so it's a moon. It look in the daytime, depending on the time, it'll show a sun or sun with clouds depending on what it is. Nader actually was the one that came up, and I'll let you just explain this, how I built the icons, but then he mapped the icons to the data that we get back from the API call.
So basically I created like an object, kind of like a dictionary where you look up depending on what the response is from the API. I mapped it to what icons we have. So our icon names are like clear, partly cloudy, things like that. And I mapped out what each response would correlate to in our like locally what we have. So that based on the response that we create, it would put in the right icon.
Yeah, you can see here, I mean, I created a shit ton of these things. There's a lot of weather out there, but like a bunch of different stuff here. You can see it's in black, so you can't really tell, but like temperature, fog, hail, like partly cloudy, all different types of crap that I created for this. So all these icons, they're all vector images. They're all our own. So
did you use Illustrator?
Mm-hmm. I use Illustrator. So just past knowledge I have from other things, but that's the end of it. Any questions?
So what would you do based on the map? Like where would you go right now?
Oh, I'd go home and watch Netflix. No, the idea is the next thing that I want to put, I mean, I have a lot of things I want to do for other homework assignments that we've done, but with this class, you just don't have time to revisit them. You just got to push on. But eventually, if I ever had time to revisit this, we talked about it. We'd want to put a slider on the bottom here to change the day. Because as of right now, this is just real-time data, but you'd want to use this to like plan your weekend. So if I'm looking at this today, I want to know what to do this Saturday, and I want to make that decision today about Saturday, looking at this map, I need a slider across the bottom to define that. So if you created something here where you could it says like at this moment, you grab the at this moment and you slid it over to Saturday, then it would give you the data for Saturday. That's probably next, but we're happy with where it's at right now. Yeah. So.
Amazing job, guys.
Thanks. Oh no.
Oh my God. You'll see view options at the top.
Is it good?
View options.
Is that good? Can you hear me?
You're good now.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Kwa.
I'm James.
And Monica.
And our app is called Habitual. The purpose of this app is to create an app that
Helps you to build a habit because usually we're not consistent on building habits.
a lot of the
Also, when we were looking at other habit tracking apps, Claude mentioned that you're kind of responsible on your own to track your own habit. So you could, if let's say I have to do homework for like the rest of the week, I could just say that I did it, but really you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So now this is.
So the point of this app is to make sure that there's no way to cheat it. So okay, let's take a look. Let's create an account. We're gonna do.
Oh, and then Claude,
and we use Firebase. We create accounts. We use the authentication of Firebase, and we are also able to keep the session on the whole app because we have to make. We have different pages, so between pages we don't lose the login, the session.
Yeah, so for this app, once you've picked a location that you want to go to every day, to the gym, or maybe you want to do yoga every day, once you set it as your location, you can only complete that habit for that day by being within a certain range of that place. So you can't just say, oh, I went to the gym. You have to be at the gym for a certain amount of time, click complete, and the app will figure out, are you there? Are you actually at the gym? Or are you just lying? Yeah, so let's pick, this is where we are. This is generated by the geolocation method of the Google API. Let's say I want to find a yoga place nearby. It's going to populate yoga places nearby. We can see this is a yoga online store. No, don't go there. This is Core Power. This is, I guess that's a yoga place. Say I want to do a spin class. I'm going to click on spin, and something should happen. Let's go back to yoga. Say I want to do yoga. I will now click habit, pick a habit, click on this, and this will give me some buttons. I now have the address of this place. I can delete this habit and pick a new one if I wanted to. That will kind of reload the map. Let's say I want to do a gym next. Pick a habit. Let's go here. Crunch Fitness. Here is my metrics for the first 6 months of the year. And right now, this button is blue, which indicates that I can complete this habit. Hopefully. I'm not sure if I'm within range. I am within range. Okay, cool. So this will count up to 10 seconds. Hopefully this will be 20 minutes if you set it as a gym, because no one wants to go to the gym for 10 seconds. And after that's done, this will say 1. So yay, we did it. And with the Firebase, you can refresh this, and you still shouldn't be able to complete this habit because it's already done for the day. And we know that because the object that's generated shows us this is the last day completed. So every time we load the app, it will check to see what today is and then what the last day completed is. And if it matches exactly, then you shouldn't be able to complete the habit again. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's that. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because the main goal is to make you complete an activity that you already did.
Yeah, so that's our app. This is just chart.
Yeah, charts.js. That's the other JavaScript library they'll use. And at first we hard coded it, but then we made it dynamic. So then if you were to flip through the month, let's say we did like May,
yeah,
it would show you your breakdown of how long you've been doing that habit. And that ties in with our goal of if you stay on track with your habit for 3 months, we hope that you would just keep that routine going.
Yeah, so right now we're in February. If I went and changed the month and said it was November or October, go back. The chart will now load the second 6 months of the year.
I think you made a typo.
Oh, that was a test you passed. Yeah, now we're in June to December. And if I complete this, the app thinks that I'm not in February anymore.
Can you show the code where it's counting the seconds?
Yeah. Hold on, I just want to see the graph. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's see. Create marker. Right here. Time starter. So there's a lot of flags everywhere because once a button is done doing its function, you don't want it to keep being able to do it. So there's flags everywhere. So this is one of the flags. Says no, that's not one of the flags. I'm lying. This is the function right here.
Thanks.
I can explain it if you need to.
I mean, you share your GitHub.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. All of these buttons have their own pictures. So that's cool.
You use the Materialize for it?
Yeah. And then each of them will have a info box generated dynamically. So.
Did you host this on Node.js?
Sorry?
Did you host this on Node.js?
No.
No, this is a
This is
local
live server.
server.
Oh yeah. It's live server. Yeah. Any questions?
This app is dangerous with like connected devices. You got a smart fridge in like the future, like the fridge won't unlock. You work there for 20 minutes.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So I'm gonna hopefully I'm gonna try to start using this once we learn backend and we can encrypt the API key because I want to use it because I cheat the gym a lot. Like I'll say, oh, I'll go, but I'll do
Wait, do you tell people that you've been?
No. I'll just I'll do 10 squats and be like, oh, I did the gym for today, counts, which is BS. Like I shouldn't be able to do that. That's cheating. So yeah. Yep.
Any other question?
Oh, the code. Yeah. Oh shit. So the Google Maps API was really hard to use because there were a bunch of very specific methods, or if you go on the website, they can show you how to search nearby, or they can show you how to make markers. But combining the two, you essentially had to break them up individually and then figure out where the result of one function can be fed into the input of another function of a different service. So if you use the Google Maps API, you just have to know where things can be broken up and put back together because you can't just integrate it smoothly like that, which was by far the hardest part for me of this. So, for example, I don't want to explain. It's really hard, but it's really hard. Yeah. A lot of this is I don't even know where to explain. Like this text search, this is one of the methods that you can put in like park or mall or something into this request, and it will spit back a bunch of coordinates, a bunch of objects with the name and the coordinates of that place. And so I take that request and I throw it into this callback, which generates the marker. That's how. So I take all the results of that search text and then use the create marker method to find the coordinates of each and dynamically place them. So that's what I mean by taking one thing and put it into another.
So when you click yoga, that's how you get all the
Yeah, it sucks.
What about the hover functions and on click?
For the buttons, Oh, yeah. So that's just like a bunch of flags. Like all these like onload marker set as habit. A lot of these will turn true or false depending on whether you should be allowed to set something as a habit. So for example, these should be done. Just pretend they're done. Okay. So for park, just kidding. For gym, it's really slow. Okay. I can click on this marker and this info box will show up. So nothing's going to happen. But if I click pick a habit and then I click on the marker, nothing happens again. Just kidding. There. Now, once I click on the set as habit button, something has been turned from false to true for the marker. So now that it's true, the marker function will run where it populates the rest of these buttons. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So it's a lot of those. If you are trying to make sure that something is no longer usable, so this button no longer works, the hover is gone, something has been set to false. So this hover on doesn't work. So if it's set to modify and agree, this has been set back to true. Now I can click on it again. Just so you can't set multiple things that break each other.
Like light switches.
Yeah. Exactly.
If this light switch is on, then you can do this and turn it off.
Yeah. So you kind of know where to turn them off and turn back on again. Yeah. Any other questions?
What about the Myra Awards?
Sorry?
The Myra Awards.
Oh, yeah, just ignore that. That doesn't work.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Anyone else want to present? Nick? Go for it, Nick. Yeah, just like share screen in Zoom.
Oh yeah, unmute. Okay. Yeah, I'm unmuted. So yeah. Okay, so my project is about walking tours in San Francisco, and it's a pretty simple project. Essentially, what it does is it allows someone who wants to join a walking tour to browse sort of the tours, and also to browse upcoming walks for each sort of historical tour of the neighborhood, and last but not least, to sign up. So rather than show the app, I'm probably just going to like show you kind of how I got to what I did with the data, because I did start kind of with the data. And I guess this is an example of a particular tour, and you can see it's kind of a big JSON object with a lot of nested fields. You have generally like kind of the walk, some metadata about the walk, the coordinates, also the the tour is all this. Then you have some information about scheduled walks coming up, like every Thursday for the next month or whatnot. And then last but not least, you have for each walk you have attendees. So as you can see, I mean, just trying to like navigate this and update it in Firebase would have been just really hard to do. So thankfully, I was able to simplify to a simpler structure where I guess I'll show you the Firebase, where I broke it up into attendees, guides, tours, and walks. And so you've got the tours, and then each tour has sort of an array of different upcoming walks. And these are like all the different walks. And then for each walk, you're supposed to have an array of attendees here. So basically, it's very simple. It's just like decided to do it mobile first using Material Design Lite, which I found good but kind of restrictive. I mean, it just gives you some very basic sort of buttons and templates, but it was just kind of really hard to work with. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you plan on doing a lot of the styling yourself. So here you just have like a really nice long list of the different neighborhoods and different walks. If you click on tour details, you basically have upcoming walks for this different particular neighborhood, which I guess here, this one's the Castro. So and then you have some different like YouTube videos that you can use to preview, like different sort of like different walks within the Castro, and just to kind of get a feel for like the neighborhood before actually signing up. And then of course you have sort of the map of the Castro. So last but not least, like if you're like, okay, like I'll sign up on April 1st, then you can just sort of sign up. And then 2 guests. So if you sign up, you see like, signed up in Firebase. So that's about it. I mean, like I wanted to build it out a lot more and do a lot more with for example, like some of the mapping features, but I really didn't get to it. So in the future, like what would be great is to kind of like have sort of an animated kind of pathway through the different neighborhood that would show you, I mean, that's what I kind of hope to do, is kind of a pathway through the neighborhood to show you sort of like that particular, where the walk's gonna go, and maybe like along the way show some different like cafes or different landmarks using icons. So, I mean, it's a great project in that obviously like there's a lot I can do to just kind of keep building on it. So, and I chose Material Design Lite because there's something called Material UI that works really well with React. So in the future, I hope to kind of make this run with React, React for the mobile phone. React Native, thank you. So that's it. Yeah, so this is kind of the PDF of what they have. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of self-guided tours, but for me personally, like, I'm actually kind of building this for myself. Like, I can do this anywhere, like Philadelphia, San Francisco. And, you know, I can like see like, typically like if there are a few people that show up, like if there's a minimum of like 5 or 10 people, like the tour will be canceled, you know? So it's a good way of like telling like kind of how many people.
Transit information is ready. Click add to Chrome and add extension.
Yeah, so it's a good way to kind of tell, you know, how many people will be coming out. For the
Who's going
tour.
to be there to guide them?
Well, like the tour guide.
Does the tour guide also sign up?
Well, okay, so the tour guide, this is something that I want to build out, is the tour guide actually, for every tour that's kind of got a historical script and a sort of a pathway, you know, a tour guide organizes walks. So like, you know, there could be like a few tour guides that are all giving the walk of Golden Gate Park, right? And if I'm a tour guide, I can go into the app on a form and just kind of like register a new walk for that tour on any given day.
Essentially, it's going to bring tour guides together with people who want to go on those tours.
Well, it allows anyone to kind of create a tour and or for a tour that's already been sort of kind of fleshed out to give like walks over the course of the year, you know? And then ideally maybe I could charge like, I don't know, like $10 per tour or something.
So it's like an Uber tour. Like,
You just said that.
oh, you did?
Totally stole that.
What?
You just said that.
Oh, I didn't hear
You
it.
just said
I
that.
just said
Subconscious.
Yeah, that could be, very well could be.
It is totally part of Uber app. It's like,
Oh, an Uber app?
just go to this location and then there's a tour guide waiting for you. And then you have pizza. Uber Eats.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I was even thinking some of the weather stuff would be great.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I might actually just try and, like, if you open source all those icons, I might actually, like, try and put, like, the icon of, like, great, the weather for that particular day, you know?
Took me a long time to do that.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's like, yeah. You do, like, a huge mashup of apps and just create something really good. So, yeah, that's about it.
Great job.
Thank you.